All right, welcome to Talking Investing. I'm Tom. I'm here with George, and we have some good news and some bad news. How's it going, George?
There's bad news?
Depending on what you have in your portfolio, in my
I
opinion, there's
I
good
got a
news and
mix.
bad
I got a
news.
mix. I got a mix.
So you got some good news, and listen, today was brutal. Today was great. Listen, if you guys are just in the cryptocurrency, if you're in the underlying asset, then this continues to run. I mean, we'll get into some stuff that Bitcoin's done in the last week that's just absolutely historic. It's breaking record after record. But many of us, I know subscribers, particularly the members, a lot of us are invested in the Bitcoin miners, certainly myself included. And it is not going well over the last week. And then I'm going to take a look at a larger period that's about 9.5 weeks now, a little bit more. And then I'm going to compare that to something that happened last year, because I think we're reliving the exact same scenario that happened in the middle of 2023. So we'll look at all of those, but the Bitcoin miners are just absolutely lagging behind. It is absolutely brutal. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I know all, the video that we put out this morning on the channel already in just 5 hours has more comments than any other video in the history of the channel. And that's after going through and doing my best effort to wash out all the spam. So people are out there, they're wondering, they're worried, they're disappointed, dismayed. Hopefully, they're not making any rash decisions or panicking, but that is what we're here to talk about. This is not our normal live stream day, but lately, every time, on good days and bad days, we've been trying to get on, talk to you guys, share our thoughts. You guys can share your thoughts and talk it out, because this is really, really tough to watch, particularly, to watch Bitcoin have this historic run and just in, being invested in the Bitcoin miners, really not participating in it, and somewhat to the contrary, right? I mean, some of these are going down, pretty significantly. So rough day.
Rough rider, buddy. Rough rider.
It's a rough ride. So where are you at, George? What are you in?
I was, dude. I'm telling you, I wasn't feeling good on Friday. Everybody was giving me hell. I just wasn't feeling good about miners. I felt great about Bitcoin. Just wasn't feeling the love right now.
Well, we did talk about on the Friday live stream concern. If you watched the weekend update video, I talked about the fact that, this downward pressure, we've lived this once before, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's over. And even as I sit here today, I still can't, I'm just not sure it's over. But I do think a more important question to ask, and this is, one of the reasons I wanted to come in here and talk to everybody is, have we changed our mind? Do you think something's fundamentally changed? Have the Bitcoin miners flipped into a bad investment? Because, for those of you who are dollar cost averaging, and I know we have all types of investors here. We have day traders. We have a lot of swing traders. But we have, I would say the vast majority are longer term traders. So, have people's investment thesis changed? Are you losing confidence? Have you sold? And I think we should do that poll. Let me just put.
I just wish I would go back to day trading. Because
Yeah,
I would have took the money this first morning. I was up, a ton of money, and I was like, wait until the freaking 9:30 where they gotta start selling to pay the bills. I didn't sell anything today, so I'm not panicking yet. Because I didn't sell anything because my crypto is doing better than what I lost, by the way, in everything that I'm in.
so because you have a hybrid, you have the underlying
Yeah.
cryptocurrencies as well as the Bitcoin miners, and that offsets itself a little bit. So the poll simply is, are you And then you have three choices. Are you buying the Bitcoin miners? Are you selling the Bitcoin miners? Or are you holding?
I think it is, are you or are you not a knock?
All right.
That's what I think you meant to say.
A knock.
A knock. Sorry. Movie quotes, guys.
Man, I
I
wish.
think that Bitcoin is going to get real interesting and right after the halving or right before it. I think there's, unless people start coming out of the, the vault of their storage and start selling, it's going to be real interesting. Prices are going to start really getting crazy.
Well, we're in the middle of a little bit of a pullback. I'm looking at what you guys are looking at. It's the 15-minute time frame, the chart that I have on the screen. And you'll see just an hour ago, if you look, I don't know, you guys probably can't see it up here, but if I go on to this 15-minute candle, on this chart that I'm on, which is the Bitcoin Coinbase chart in US dollars, we hit exactly $68,000.00 right to the penny. So we hit that just less than 1 hour ago, and now we're down about $1,000 from there. But it's not fair to say we're down $1,000. In fact, I want to see if I can find this. I thought this was interesting. Just glancing, let me see if it's still here. If you glanced through Yahoo Finance, down here you'll see an article, Bitcoin tops $66,000. Then if you scroll up a little, Bitcoin tops $67,000. And then if you go to the chart, you'll see Bitcoin hit exactly 68. This is all in one day. So, I mean, we were trading under $63,000 when the market closed on Friday, when the U.S. equities market closed. Obviously, Bitcoin trades 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But we compare to go apples to apples. This gold or orange line way down here, this is where Bitcoin was last Friday when the equity markets closed. So our move today from Friday, just today's trading day, where was this is where we closed. We're down a little bit from there. We were up over 7%. Just Bitcoin itself. Now it's pulled back a little bit, but that still leaves us up 6.5%, even if we were to measure right now. So this is a gigantic up day. And just to get a few quick things out of the way, Bitcoin, I've watched a lot of other people on YouTube, and I feel like they might be missing a little bit of the picture, because I keep hearing people say, be prepared. We get candles like this all the time. This is what happens. This is how Bitcoin works. But in reality, I'm going to show you that's not true. The weekly candle we just closed was the biggest weekly candle of any week in the history of Bitcoin. And the monthly candle we just closed last week was the biggest monthly candle in the history of Bitcoin. So we do not get these all the time. I think it's important to understand this was a ferocious move to the upside. And I'm talking about from a dollars standpoint. So you could probably find some times where as a percentage, we've had candles similar to this, but we don't get $10,000 or $11,000. I have these up somewhere. Let's just quickly, because I think it's important to keep this in perspective, right? This is not a everyday thing. Bitcoin is running in a way that it very, very rarely does. And it's very similar to typically the blow-off tops that Bitcoin has in the middle of the cycle when it hits its peak. We've never really had this type of action outside of that before. So if you look at, let me find the one. Where's the 1 week? The 1 day, and we can show you. So essentially, if I go to the Bitcoin, that's the monthly. Sorry, let me find it. Okay, so I'll go to the 1 month first. So on the 1 month, I drew a line here, and you'll see this box is the month of February. So the final day of February, February 29th, it was a red day. So we closed a little bit off of our highs. And that left us with this candle. That was an $18,606 candle. That was a 44% move to the upside. That is the largest candle that that Bitcoin's ever had in a month, that 18,606. And if I do it this way and go, okay. So if you go back here, this is all the way back in October of 2021, 1 month before Bitcoin hit its all-time high. We had a $17,534 candle. That's the second best daily candle we've ever had. So we don't get these all the time. This month was the single best month Bitcoin's ever had as far as the amount of dollars it's gone up. And if I could find the week, I have this somewhere. I don't know where it's hiding, but we were up about $11,400 on the week. That's the biggest weekly candle we've ever had in the history of Bitcoin. So these are historic moves. But having said all that, it's all the more frustrating to sit here and look at the Bitcoin miners. And I'll go through some charts of what the Bitcoin miners did in that same period of time. And to watch, red days like today, when we're back up to $68,000, just coming off of the best week we ever had, just coming off of the best month we've ever had, for the Bitcoin miners to be lagging, I know is a source of great frustration for a lot of you guys. I want to talk about 5 or 6 reasons why I think this is happening. And then I want to talk about what I think is coming next. And I'll just, spoiler alert, I am still bullish on the Bitcoin miners. So I know that perspective might seem difficult today. And I will say, having said that, that doesn't mean I think they're headed up tomorrow. We're in a downward swing. We're in a big pullback, and this could continue for a few weeks, or I might even argue a scenario where it could continue for a few more months, which is not necessarily what everybody wants to hear. But I just want to look at, take a look at historically some stuff that's happened and, what might be ahead, so that, if you're expecting it, it makes it a little easy, a little better, more palatable, if you understand that there's a possibility this could continue. And what I'm also worried about is that people are going to start chasing, and in doing so, they're going to start losing their money, right? If you're always one step behind, right? Right now, Bitcoin's pumping. We see that. MicroStrategy, I want to go through. MicroStrategy is pumping huge. MicroStrategy has had an outsized move to the upside. It's performing really better than all the Bitcoin miners, but it's performing better than any. I think it's the number one Bitcoin related play out there by a mile recently. It was up 23.5% today on a day that Bitcoin's up 7%. So, that's a 3.5, X move versus what Bitcoin did. And it's done that a couple of times recently. So MicroStrategy's gone through the roof, but I would be concerned. And again, obviously anybody can do whatever they want. So I always have to really express, this is not financial advice. And I don't just say that to say it. There's a lot of different ways to invest. And, just because it's what I say, or because it's what George says, or whatever your other favorite YouTuber says, or your uncle or your cousin or whoever, you guys got to do you. And I know that you know that. But what I would say is, if it was not your plan, if you switch gears and all of a sudden you go, you know what, the Bitcoin miners aren't moving and MicroStrategy's off to the races, let me sell all my Bitcoin miners and jump into MicroStrategy. Well, it is entirely possible that you're going to be chasing one step behind. Or if you say, well, I'm going to go to the ETFs because Bitcoin's running while the Bitcoin miners are going down. Well, you just suffered a big part of the downward trend for the Bitcoin miners. So is it over? I don't know. I think probably not. It could be, but I would just say, be thoughtful, be strategic. Don't just start panicking. If this wasn't your plan, if it wasn't your plan to sell all the Bitcoin miners and move into MicroStrategy, then I would just say, think long and hard. Has something changed? Do you have a valid reason, or is that just pure FOMO that, you look at that number? I see it. It's on the screen. I'm looking at it. It's right here, 23.5%. That is very tempting, but I am not going to chase it. For those of you, who have been here a long time, I never, ever chase anything, sometimes to my detriment. Sometimes I miss gigantic moves to the upside. But
Tom, I don't know if you guys, I'm not doing this to any of the Bitcoin miners. Just so you know, I don't want anybody to hate me. But I started taking out some puts on a lot of different things today.
puts just
Sorry.
throughout the entire market,
Yeah.
puts throughout the
Yeah.
cryptocurrency world,
Through.
puts
No,
throughout.
I got nothing to do with the crypto because I don't want you guys to hate me. But just the banking industry is, starting to really rear its ugly head, and I just think there's some opportunities to go short right now, for me at least.
Well, I've been looking, and I will tell you guys, it is a part of my plan to, and I from time to time I will buy some protection on my Bitcoin holdings and my Bitcoin related holdings. But by far my biggest investments are in the Bitcoin miners. I'm also in stock ticker BITX, BitX. That is a 2x leverage on Bitcoin. And that did very well today. You'll see here right on the bottom of this, if you guys can see that was up almost 15% today. So that was, in a day where my biggest holdings, CleanSpark's my biggest holding by far, it was down almost 8%. Bitfarms, I think, is my second biggest holding, or it was until the last few days. It was down 10%. Riot 6.5%, Marathon just under 5%. I mean, those are my four highest conviction plays in the Bitcoin mining space by far. And as a result, they're my four largest positions. I do have a few other smaller positions, but there was almost nowhere to hide. Core Scientific had a great week last week. It outperformed. We'll take a look at it. Was the number one performer by far. Core Scientific continued that today. It was green today. BitTier ended up a little bit in the green. GREE was a little bit green. But for the most part, you'll see the big Bitcoin miners were down anywhere from, 5 to 10% on the day today. So this was on
my goodness.
on a day where Bitcoin was just off to the races. We're sitting here, it's pulled back $1,000 to get to $67,000. I mean, we are. Go ahead, George.
Did you see the volume on CleanSpark today?
Thank you.
Wow.
Let me bring up a chart.
Wow.
Here is the volume.
Wow.
This is a volume.
This is insane.
Hopefully you should see this on the screen. This is a chart of every single stock with the most volume today. So starting at the top, let's see, where's the volume numbers? All right. So Tesla was number one. Tesla and Marathon are typically 1 and 2 in no particular order. That's not every single day, but almost every single day. So Tesla had a monster day. It was down 7%. We won't even talk about that right now. If not for the fact that Tesla had one of the, that's one of the biggest down days for any stock. It's probably one of the top 20 worst days for a stock from a market cap standpoint ever. So that led the day. But Marathon, 117 million shares. And then on just above the fold, CleanSpark is here with 60 million shares traded, and then Riot with 38 million. So 3 of the top 15 most traded stocks in the entire stock market today were Bitcoin mining stocks. So while these are smaller companies, and obviously from a dollar standpoint, the volume of dollars traded is no comparison, right? Tesla is a much more expensive stock. But just from a sheer shares traded, these are, this was huge volume, and that continues to be the case. So some of the reasons, let me just go through some of the reasons that I think this is happening. I'm going to throw a bunch out there, and then we'll talk about them a little bit, and I think I'm going to say the last one, the biggest single reason. So let's just take a quick look at the poll. Wow, this could be our all-time highest number of votes on a poll. We just hit 400 votes. So 37 of you are buying. 37% of you are bought some of the Bitcoin miners today, dollar cost averaging, whatever the case may be. 49%, almost half of you are holding. 14% sold today. So, over 85% either held or bought. So not sensing a lot of panic from this group. But that said, I think at this point in the downturn for the Bitcoin miners, panic is probably one of the biggest reasons. So I have a combination of reasons. Number one, the halving is coming up. So I'll talk more about that and what's happened in the past. But the halving, while it is great for Bitcoin, and ultimately it's great for the Bitcoin miners, or at least the ones that will succeed in the short term, I think that puts some downward pressure, obviously, because the reward gets cut in half. It's harder, these companies will have a period of time where they're making less money, they're generating less gross profit. Obviously, they'll be mining less Bitcoin. So the halving's putting some pressure on it. I think the short sellers have come in a big way. So, the short sellers coming in, and, I'll combine that with one of my other ones, which is kind of market manipulation, if you will. And I'm not saying anything, illegal. I'm just saying big money can push around the market. And these are, even the largest of these companies are very small companies, right? I think Marathon's the largest at about $6 billion. In today's world, a $6 billion company is, while technically that's a mid-cap company, that's a small cap stock, right? There's companies that are, 500 times bigger than that. So, and that's the biggest one. Most of these are not even billion-dollar market caps. So you've got a lot of shorts coming in. You've got some market manipulation. Big money, I think, is trying to get their next round. This is the rotation that goes on. And you can see they are just straight up beating up the Bitcoin miners. I do think the ETFs in the short term, while they've been phenomenal for Bitcoin, I do think there's a little bit of flocking to the ETFs. I think that's the smallest piece of the puzzle. I don't think there's a mass exodus from the Bitcoin miners into the ETFs. But even if there is, it would be my opinion that would push the price of the Bitcoin miners down in the short term. It would push the price of Bitcoin up in the short term. But as time goes by, that is just going to make the Bitcoin miners more and more desirable as their price goes down. So I do think it's almost a circular thing that's going to happen. As money's moving out and the shorts are moving in, I do think the money will move back in. And I'm going to show you when this exact same thing happened last year. So those things. And then finally, I do think panic is a big, big factor. A lot of people here may not have acted on their panic. And maybe for a lot of you, it's short of panic. It's just, either disappointment or dismay or whatever the case may be. I was very disappointed today. And you knew, George and I talked this morning before the market opened, everything was green. All the Bitcoin miners were green, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% into the green before the market opened. And we knew, we talked about it. Just wait for the market to open. The sell-off is going to happen. And so that is the reason that I would say that is the biggest proof positive. While the retail investors are buying in pre-market and after-market, right? We've had how many days where in pre-market we run up big time, only once the big money moves in, when the market opens, bang, gigantic sell-off for the rest of the day. So that's probably the biggest thing that I would point to the short selling coming in, the market manipulation coming in. And then once that starts to happen, obviously then the retail people start to panic and go, oh, come on, I bought in pre-market. Marathon, I bought them up 8% in pre-market, and now they're down 8%. And then they start to sell. Crypto Fever, thank you very much for the super chat. Also, thank you very much for being a member. It is much appreciated. Crypto Fever said, I was a buyer and will continue to be a buyer. I hope these go lower and give us more fear and panic. CleanSpark, Mara, Bitfarms. Third time we see this play. Face-melting rallies are ahead. Shakeout. So thank you, Crypto Fever. And I'm going to go to a few charts. This is the exact cycle, exactly what you're talking about. And we've seen it several times recently where we keep the miners keep selling off only to, go back to new highs in this cycle. None of them are back to their all-time highs, but I do think that is still ahead of us in this bull market. And I've got some other charts comparing this bull market to the previous bull market. And while a few of you probably are well aware of this, I think most of you are going to be very, very surprised at what the pattern was in the previous cycle, the previous 4-year cycle for these Bitcoin miners. So let me just quickly look at this to Crypto Fever's point.
Hey, after you look at that, look at the dominant for Bitcoin too.
Oh, okay. You got it. All right. So
it looks like they're dominating. Bitcoin is dominating in the crypto world.
I mean, it is dominating. Let me change this to a color that you can see a little bit more. So you can see this only goes back to December 13th, right? So we're, not even, this is 2.5 months of activity. You could have rode this up, right? These are not small moves. This is 113% move to the upside. And that was to December 27th, right? Then a 34% move. And then we ran back up. But if you go to the bottom, then a 53% move to the downside. So, and then here again, we go from here up to here. That's almost 100% move to the upside. If you held all the way to here, it was 120% move to the upside. So all of these zigzags, every time you see a zigzag, no, this is not a pattern. This is not a cup and handle. It's not a head and shoulders. It's not a this or that. And, some people might argue it is a head and shoulders, but that's not even my point. My point is this is volatility. So the biggest thing we talk about in this channel is volatility. If you don't like volatility, if you can't stomach volatility, you can expect volatility with these Bitcoin miners, even more than the massive volatility that you get with Bitcoin itself. All right. Christian. Oh, thank you. Actually, that was on my list, and it is a big one. Thank you, Christian, who is a member, for pointing this out. Thanks for the super chat. I missed a big one, which is definitely a factor. Tom, no mention of dilution. Obviously at play here. These companies dilute into strength, hence the crazy volume. It's the opposite of buyback. So thank you, Christian. That was on my list, and I did not say it. So, and you're 100% right. We went through, I think, on Thursday or Friday's stream, the amount of dilution that's going on is historic with these Bitcoin miners. They all just had a massive amount of dilution in the first month and a half to 2 months of the year. And then, a lot of them just recently in 2024 opened gigantic at the market offerings. CleanSpark has a $500 million at the market offering that they started in 2024. Riot has a $750 million at the market offering that they started in 2024. And Marathon has a $1.5 billion offering that they started last week in 2024. So, that in the meantime, Iris Energy has a big at the market offering open. Bitfarms has a big at the market offering open. All of these companies that are trying to grow, this is how they grow. So that comment is spot on. That is a big part of what's happening. And they're trying to do this pre-halving to ramp up for the halving and beyond. A lot of these companies did make big purchases of Bitcoin miners. I like the Bitcoin miners they bought. I love the price they bought them at. This is one big difference between this cycle and the last cycle. The equipment is a lot more efficient and a lot more affordable. Now, the infrastructure side of things is still there, but so the question is, I will tell you, some of this was a little staggering for me, and I'm still not totally adjusted to, a $750 million at the market offering. By the way, Riot had a $750 million offering in 2023. They finished it out, and now they're doing another one in 2024. Marathon had a $750 million offering in October of 2023. They used $250 million of it by the end of the year. They grabbed the other $500 million already, and they closed that one out to go for another $1.5 billion. So this is a lot of dilution. So that is another gigantic reason you can expect some continued selling pressure. And yes, they are selling into strength despite the recent pullbacks. These companies are significantly, if we go back to Marathon, it's not at its high. It hit $31 back in December. It got up to $34, but this was a $15 stock for, many. It bounced off of $15 or $16 several times, and you don't have to go that much further back If you go back to October of 2023, just 6 months ago, this was a $7 stock. So, when Marathon sells some shares at $25 or $26, it may seem like, why aren't they waiting and selling it at 30? Well, from their perspective, 25 is pretty good compared to the $7, $8, $9, $10 that they fluctuated between. And by the way, that wasn't their low. This was a $3 stock just over a year ago. So, from 3 to 30, that's a 10x. So they're still 7 or 8x. And, so they're diluting at these numbers. And, we can hope, obviously, if you're invested in one of these, you hope that they're diluting with good, proper strategy, proper intentions, and, they're going to use this money to grow their business in a way that exceeds both the growth in the network, overall network, right? So they can keep up with the difficulty level and to compensate for the halving. Now, one of the things that's compensated for the halving, if we look at the Bitcoin chart, I'm going to go to the 1 week, and I think we can, get a sense of this. This is not a little run up that we've had. In the last, 14 or 15 months, we are now up, Bitcoin's up 346%. So, in that same period of time, the difficulty level has more than doubled. So you would say, man, that makes it very difficult for the Bitcoin miners. But by the same token, Bitcoin itself is up 346% in price. So that has more than compensated. So the Bitcoin miners that are keeping up, that have growth plans, that are executing their growth plans, I do think there's still big, big upside ahead. Of course, that's my opinion. We'll see what you guys think.
Miners are dead. I think it's more well-coordinated of attack, Tom. You know that?
You think this is an attack by... Go ahead.
I think it's big money. I think it's big money coming in saying, let's move the price of Bitcoin. Let's screw with the miners so people don't get a double whammy and make it so that they have to earn it. That's what I think.
Well, and that was one or two of the items on my list. I think one of the mechanisms to do that is they come in and short these stocks. They just create selling pressure. And obviously, like I said, most of these are still very small market cap stocks, comparatively speaking. So it's not that hard to push them around in the short term. Having said that, institutions, particularly with Marathon, Riot, and CleanSpark, there's big institutional holders in those companies. So ultimately, I think, those three in particular have already been, I think all three of those are in the Russell. A lot of people are talking about the fact that one of the recent run-ups in MicroStrategy is based on the fact that they've now reached, I think by market cap, there's certain parameters to get into the S&P 500. So MicroStrategy recently crossed that threshold. So we don't know if MicroStrategy is going to get into the S&P 500. It very well may. It's already in the Russell 2000. Now, for the stocks that have been in the Russell 2000, that has meant very little for the last 2.5 years as the Russell 2000 has drastically lagged. But I believe that this year, the Russell 2000 will be the runaway winner by the end of this year. So for Marathon, Riot, CleanSpark, MicroStrategy, all of which are already in the Russell, I think that will be another catalyst for them to continue to run. So this is why I say, I don't know how long the pain is going to last. Today was another day of big pain, right? There's just no denying. I'm not going to come on here and say, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, all is well. This was a disturbing day. And, I have big positions in these for me. And obviously the word big means something different for every investor, right? So, however,
same for my wife too, yeah. Sorry.
As soon as I opened the door, I had a feeling it was, oh. Anyway, the point is, whether you're new to investing, whether you're investing 3 figures, 4 figures, 5, 6, 7 figures, whatever it is, and I know from talking to our members, we have people at all of those levels just in our membership, never mind in our subscribers. So I know you guys are out there, so it's all relative. A bad day is a bad day, right?
Yeah. I mean, Tom, I had worse days than this, so it doesn't really affect me. You know, I'm just down from my highs. It's okay. It's going to be okay.
I
I think
think
it's going to be okay.
I think that's an important message, George, because a couple of things to keep in mind, and one of the things that makes it hard to feel what you just said. First, let me get to. Don't let me lose that thought. Flores, thank you very much for the super chat. I'm not going to mispronounce your first name. My apologies. Thanks so much for the super chat. I went all in on Bitfarms. Is Bitfarms in your top two miners that will be included in miner list ROI analysis that you will be releasing to your members? What do you expect for Bitfarms on Thursday's earnings? So I will tell you, I mean, Bitfarms is my second largest position. I have 4 miners that I have the very highest level of conviction in. Yes, Riot still is in that group. Riot and Marathon have given me some pause. I'm digesting their massive information, and that massive information for Riot was another $750 million at the market offering, and the massive information for Marathon was a whopping $1.5 billion at the market offering, in combination with the fact that they let us know that they just, in the matter of a month and a half, went and sold $500 million worth of their previous shelf offering. So that's an awful lot of dilution. I do think, big picture, these bigger companies have a tactical advantage. I think Marathon and Riot have a gigantic advantage because they've been on they've been on the Nasdaq for a lot longer than the other stocks. Now there's 15, 16, 17 stocks publicly traded on the Nasdaq that are Bitcoin miners. Riot and Marathon were first. They weren't first in mining altogether. There's some Canadian companies, and Argo Blockchain, Bitfarms. Argo Blockchain's not in Canada, but Bitfarms, Hut, and Hive, that have also been in this game for multiple cycles. But Riot and Marathon were in first. They got institutional adoption first, and they're far out ahead of everybody. CleanSpark, I would argue, actually, CleanSpark has caught up to them. So those 3 by far stand out as the big 3 in this space. To me, Bitfarms is my next one in line. And I do have 2 or 3 more past that I think are going to be very successful. And then a group past that I think could succeed. But I will reiterate for the 1,000th time, I do think this time around is going to be different. It's not going to be every Bitcoin miner to the moon. I think there will be winners and losers. I know some people are starting to get this sense it's going to be all losers, and this is what they're trying to do to us. So obviously, each of you needs to make your own decision, but I don't believe that. I think this is a pause to going back to George's point. This wasn't his worst day. This was not my portfolio's worst day. It felt like the worst day because this was yet another day where Bitcoin had
one disappointing day. It was just very disappointing.
That's the perfect word. Today might
very disappointing.
This might have been one of the top 3 most disappointing days for a lot of our portfolios, but it wasn't one of the worst days necessarily, while it was a bad day. So, the Bitcoin miners come with great volatility, and we've seen much worse days than this. Bitfarms was the worst one, down 10%. We've seen days where they were all down 10, 15, 20, 25%. So, and there could be more of those days ahead, but we've also seen days where we've seen 20% moves, 30% moves, sometimes more than that for even some of the medium to larger size Bitcoin miners on the way up. So I think there's a lot of room left to the upside. Yes, the Bitcoin miners are lagging. I will tell you guys, I didn't buy or sell anything today. So I may look back and kick myself and say this was a big down day. I did dollar cost average in a couple of times last week. I have slowed my pace. I spent, several years building out these positions in the Bitcoin miners. There are a few that, are newer positions for me. So I do think I will tell you, I'm, again, please, not financial advice. Do your own due diligence. Do your own thing. I've been building out a position in Iris Energy. So that is a much, much smaller position for me. For me personally, I have them ranked 5th on my personal list for 2024 or for this bull run that I think is ahead of us. So that's my personal opinion. I if they were in the United States and we got more reporting and more a little bit more transparency and clarity, I would probably even feel better about that. So they'll never be as big as a position as the 4 I just mentioned, but I am building out that position and I have my eye on a few others.
All I know is I bought Shiba and Doge, and I got out.
Oh, you got in and out.
They're just I'm thinking about getting back into Doge though, probably next week though. I really think it's going to $1, Tom.
Are you trading any of the, so Doge was, that's been around a while now. Are you in any of the new ones that whose names I refuse to say?
No. Oh, Pepe. I was in Pepe. I had fun with Pepe. Pepe, it was a fun stock. That was fun. It was just they're just fun. I mean, I'm not throwing serious money at them or anything, but you might as well screw around with them and make a little bit, Pepe.
I think there's a lot, that goes
Pepe.
to the
Pepe is moving like you would not believe. Pepe
What's
in
Pepe
90
up?
days. In 30 days, it's up 679%.
Let me see if I can find Pepe.
In the last 7 days, it's up 294%.
What's their market cap?
$2.99 billion.
That's pretty big. So they're moving.
They just Pepe. They're number 39 on my list.
All right, I got Bonk here. That's one of the ones I said I wasn't going to say, but I said
Bonk.
it.
But
and then I got Pepe.
It's $2.36 billion.
Pepe's up 36% today. Bonk's up 56% today. So for those of you willing to mess around with this stuff, I don't do it. I may miss the whole.
Fun.
Yeah, exactly. With smaller dollars, there's, when you get these gigantic moves, you don't have to have these big giant positions that you dollar cost average and build in over time. That's not what these are about necessarily. A 50% move, Bonk's a 50% move in one day today. So, if I went into this chart, I'm sure I would see it's astronomical to the upside. Let's go into.
But these guys have to be convicted to stay in these. They have to be really convicted, because I just can't do it. I do not have any conviction in any of these. None of this is financial advice. Highly, highly, highly likelihood you're going to lose your money.
Do you see the screen?
Yeah, dude, it's been fun.
This is a 3-month chart of Pepe.
Yeah,
up 374%. So
you got to say it the right way, Pepe.
Pepe. Let's see Bonk, and then I'll leave this be, because I know people are not here to talk about Pepe and Bonk, but I do think
it's just interesting.
Well, it's a part of the rotation. Conventional wisdom would say, Bitcoin, ultimately the Bitcoin run, and George, we'll take a look at your thing that you wanted us to look at, which was Bitcoin dominance.
Well, that was the reason I said look at the Bitcoin dominance.
That's right where I'm going.
Yeah, because look at what is going on. We have not had the alt season yet.
Man, I can't even find my line. That's how far above it we are on Bitcoin dominance. Oh, because I'm on the 15-minute.
I think they beat up these altcoins so bad, Tom, that it's just a matter of time for these things just going to run.
So if you look at the Bitcoin dominance,
I'm so clueless. I know I am clueless.
Back in April of 2021, the Bitcoin dominance went below this line here at just under 49%. It retested that several times over a couple of years, and, it was below it. It got way down to 39%. Now it's back up. It's near its highs. It keeps bouncing off of somewhere around 55%. I do not think it's ever going to get back to the glory days of past where, this was up in the mid 70s a couple of times. But to your point, Bitcoin dominance, I think, runs first. I think there's a lot of momentum building about potentially Ethereum being off to the races if they get this ETF. More and more people are starting to say they're going to get the ETF. I remain skeptical that May is the day for that, but I could be wrong. And then, Then we may move into some of the mid-sized altcoins, and the smaller coins can pop off at any time. So there's a lot of places you can go with your money inside of this space. The one thing I would say is, try to be careful. Don't feel like you're diversified because you're in a bunch of different altcoins, and then you're in Bitcoin, and then you're in the Bitcoin miners, and you're in MicroStrategy and an ETF. That's not diversification. That's all just different versions of the same thing. So be careful. If it's your intention to be that heavy into, the cryptocurrency world, then so be it. But don't let it sneak up on you, I guess, is all I would say. I have a disproportionate amount of money in Bitcoin and Bitcoin related stocks. So, but that was intentional. And, I do have an exit strategy. I'm not going to sell all these off, even, at the peak of the next cycle. But I've got a plan. So I guess we always talk about have a plan, try to stick to your plan, execute your plan. And of course, as George likes to talk about, this is a fluid situation. So your plan might need to change, but don't change on a panic just because today Bitcoin went up and the Bitcoin miners went down. That's not meaningful information necessarily to change your strategy. What's your strategy?
Yeah, he did say
George?
that, Barry. Tom was doing a deep dive in the top 20 altcoins before alt season, he said a while ago. David, we need a new poll. You got a new poll for me, Tom?
Poll?
We're pollless.
Let's go. Let's get a poll up.
No, I don't think it's time to run away from the miners, Bitcoin miners yet. I mean, I just think it's going to be an interesting few weeks. I think this could go on for just a minute. I don't think 30 days, but you never know. It could last into the halving. We knew they were going to do something.
It could last into the halving and beyond. So as soon as I get this poll up, I'll show you a few charts that I think are going to put things into perspective. And for me, help on these types of days, you just got to try and find things that help you zoom out and look at the big picture and not lose sight of the fact, like, for some of these, for instance, I looked at my CleanSpark position and I looked at the CleanSpark chart for 1 month. CleanSpark's still up almost 100% in the last 1 month. So it feels like CleanSpark's gotten decimated. And I saw a bunch of comments in the comments section. CleanSpark is garbage. Management's garbage. Stuff a lot worse than that. And it's like, but they're up 100% in the last month. So, and they're still the number one performing Bitcoin mining stock over the last year. So we'll take a look at that as well, not including what Core Scientific did in Chapter 11 when they were trading over the counter.
When do we get the updates of how many shares they sold?
I mean, for me, I look, the only place that I know that we get reliable updates is on a quarterly basis. We get to see, and they tell us how many they sold in the quarter. And also through the reporting date, they typically tell us in the subsequent events how many they've sold subsequent to the quarter.
Because you look at the volume of CleanSparks today, and it was unbelievable. I don't know what in the world came out. That was just insane. 61 million shares.
And what's their average volume? Do you know?
30 million.
Yeah, so that's double their average volume. It was a very high volume day. But that,
they had a great Friday with the earnings and all that, remember? I mean, I did not expect this at all. I thought they would just hover around what they were at on Friday, 17. I just think they got greedy. And then they killed me because right before the end of the day, somebody dropped a whole bunch of freaking shares.
Just quickly
right in the morning. So this started off with somebody dropping 1 million shares right at 9:30 in the morning. See, that's what scares me about the Bitcoin miners is it makes me wonder why these guys would be going after all this money right now with their at the shelf offerings. Why wouldn't they wait a little bit? That's the only reason why I'm a little nervous for the next few weeks on these Bitcoin miners.
Well, and there's several reasons for that. You know, I don't think you're going to see, although I will say Marathon grabbed $500 million in a very short window of time. That is by far the fastest stock dilution that any of the Bitcoin miners have ever done, and it's not even close. And now they've got 1.5 billion. I think they will be a lot slower with this 1.5 billion. If I'm wrong, then that's going to make me a little uncomfortable. This $1.5 billion shelf offering should last them, you know, the next, really, that they should still be working on this for the full 2 years that typically the shelf offerings run. And if they are, then you can put it in perspective and say, listen, by then they could be a 15 or $20 billion company. This is a $1.5 billion offering. So if they've diluted themselves to that extent over that period of time at that size, then it's a little more palatable. If in the next quarterly report they tell us they went and got another $600 million or something like that, then we better see some extremely tangible things that they did with this. We know they have giant orders in for these Auradine machines. We're going to have to see these come in, get installed, see how they operate, how Marathon's efficiency is. So these are the types of things I'm going to be looking at with Marathon. When you go grab that much money, you better perform. And, for instance,
Yeah.
CleanSpark has done massive dilution over the last couple of years. That's my biggest position. I have a high level of confidence in them. That's my highest conviction Bitcoin miner, but they have done a massive amount of dilution. By the same token, they're over 15 exahash, and I think they just announced they're now over 16 exahash. And, they were at 10 exahash on January 1st. Well, it's 2 months later and they're at 16. Now, that was the plan. They stuck to the plan, and, they have plans to get a lot bigger than that. And they had a very good month of mining in the month of February, which I will take a moment and say there's one other company. I said I didn't think that any of the companies in February would beat their January production numbers other than CleanSpark, because CleanSpark had already told us they had some pretty massive growth plans. So CleanSpark did substantially beat their January results in the month of February. The reason I didn't think anybody else was going to beat their results was twofold. Number one, February had 29 days, so that's less days than any other month. So obviously, the less days, less Bitcoin. Number two, the difficulty level went up substantially in the month of February. Two of the biggest adjustments to the upside, one was over 7%, one was over 8%. So, between those elements, I thought it was going to be very difficult for anybody to get back to their numbers. But I will give a shout out. In addition to CleanSpark crushing their January numbers, I want to go to TeraWulf. So let's go to the chart first. If you take a look at this chart, you're going to see these were December numbers, and this was January numbers. This was the percent change. So every single Bitcoin miner that I follow that issues monthly operational updates was down rather considerably in January versus December. Marathon was down the most, 42%. That's not quite fair. December was a little bit of an anomaly, but 20%-ish was about the average here, down month over month. I think we're going to see some similar, 15% month over month, 15 to 20% down from January to February. But you're going to see with TeraWulf, they mined 313 Bitcoin in January, and they had the lowest out of anybody. They were only down 6%. And then if we go back, they mined 364 in February. And the reason for that is they too had a big increase in their operational hash rate. In January, they were at 5.4 exahash. In February, they got that up to 7.5 exahash. So that is a big jump. It was enough to allow them to mine more Bitcoin, despite the fact there was 2 less days and 2 massive increases in the difficulty level. So I thought that's an impressive showing. And they reported their cost per coin went down from $16,700 to just under $14,000 cost per coin. And obviously their revenue per coin went up because Bitcoin continues to go up. So, even if this were to double at the halving, you're still only at, call it $28,000 cost per coin. So, if Bitcoin's at $60,000 or $70,000, these companies with cost per coin in this range, and this is in the lower, this is better than average. So there's a lot of companies whose cost per coin went up over $20,000 in their last quarterly report. So, if 20 turns into 40, even still at 60,000, they're still cash flow positive. But for the companies that are very small, and this is why I think there's going to be some winners or losers, for the very small market cap companies, if you're only mining, I'll go back to this chart, and I left a bunch of these off that are mining, insignificant, but even like an Argo blockchain, if you're mining 124 Bitcoin at the halving, if that gets cut to 60 or 70 Bitcoin, it gets really hard at any price to just have enough gross profit to cover your overhead and pay your bills. So I think the companies that are unable to do that after the halving, and I'm not singling out Argo blockchain, there's a bunch not even on this list that no longer even report on a monthly basis that I would be nervous about holding. Now, they may have some, big quick bursts, and, you can make a quick dollar swing trading some of these stocks. That's not my normal thing to do, but, that does, the smaller the market cap, and some of these are still very small market caps. Some of these are under $50 million market cap companies at this point. So, hi, Bryce. I see Bryce in the chat. Hello, welcome. I see somebody else saying hello. Welcome to the chat. Hope you're doing well. Love to hear your thoughts in the chat. I know today was not a great day for Bitcoin miners. All right, so let me get to another one of the charts that I wanted to show you guys. So we're not quite to our all-time high, but if we take a look at the one-day chart, you're going to see, we got to just about an hour ago. We did get to exactly $68,000, $69,000. I have a couple of pennies here, but actually on this chart, it was exactly 69,000. So, at the moment, call it, we're less than 2% away from our all-time high. We're 1 or 2% away from our all-time high. The other thing, before I go on with that I wanted to show you guys is Bitcoin reclaims its all-time high in euros. So, I went through in my video, if you haven't seen the video I put out this morning, I went through an awful lot of stuff in that. You can check that out on the channel. There's at least 30 countries where Bitcoin's already at its all-time high in the local currency. So now you can see that includes the euro. So it's starting to be across the board. Like I just showed you, we're 1.5% or 2% away in US dollars. I think, that's the one that the world keeps their eye on in order for, everybody to consider Bitcoin hitting an official new all-time high. But it was companies like China, Japan, India, Argentina, now, with the euro. So, Bitcoin is knocking on the door or already past its all-time high at a lot of places around the world. So what I was going to show you guys, if I can find it. Okay, so I looked it up. There were only 3 companies that I could find that were publicly traded. Bitcoin hit its previous all-time high, not in this last cycle. So in the last cycle, we hit an all-time high of 69,000 in November of 2021. In the previous cycle, we hit an all-time high in December of 2017. And that was just under $20,000. So if you measured it, the amount of time it took Bitcoin to get back to its all-time high, which is essentially where we are today. We're, 1.5, depending on what country you're in, we're somewhere, within 1 or 2% of being back to the previous all-time high. So I want to go to a chart and show you what the 3 Bitcoin miners that I could find that were trading, what they did from all-time high to all-time high, right? Because common sense would tell you if Bitcoin's at back to its all-time high, then the Bitcoin miners should be following suit and they should be back to their all-time high. But that is not what happened in the last cycle at all. So let me find this. So the first one is Marathon. You can see Marathon, and this is on the 1 month time frame. So this is November of 2017. Marathon had a gigantic, blow off high up. This is at around $40 back in 2017. So that's when Bitcoin was at $20,000. It took from November of 2017 until November of 2020 for Bitcoin to get back to $20,000. And you can see in that time, Marathon went from $40 to right here, which was, somewhere around $6. That is down. You can see this info line, if you guys can see, that's down 84%. So from high to high, which is not exactly, but almost exactly where we are right now today. In the previous cycle, Marathon was down 84%. I'm going to show you the other 2 that were trading. Screen's just taking a second to refresh here. Okay, so here's Riot. Again, blow off top in December of 2017. And this was over 40. They were more like $46. So when Bitcoin got back to its previous all-time high of $20,000, you can see that Riot was down 82%. So lastly, Hive was around. So believe it or not, I went back into the charts and I thought I would see Bitfarms and HUT as well, and potentially Argo Blockchain, but those charts went only back to like 2019, so not quite back far enough. However, Hive, not sure if I did it on this one or the other one. Let's take a look.
Figured it out. This is me without sugar.
Ah, get some sugar.
I can. I'm on a diet.
Oh. Might have to go to my other Hive. Hold on. Oh, there we go. Okay, so here we go again. If I go back to November of 2017 to November of 2020, Hive was down 82%. So from Bitcoin's all-time high in 2017 to Bitcoin's all-time high in 2020, the 3 Bitcoin miners that I could find that we could trace all were down 82%. So this is not a new phenomenon. By this measure, we're doing substantially better than that this time around. Depending on actually not depending on the Bitcoin miners. All the Bitcoin miners are doing better than that. So if we go to, we'll just take a look at a couple. And these are, Marathon really ran up in the last cycle. Why is it not showing me its high? Oh, this is its high right here at 83. So
I have the next question.
All right. We got to go the other way. So Marathon's down 65% off of its previous all-time high. It was down 84% the last time around, apples to apples, the same spot we were in the last cycle. Riot's going to be pretty similar. Riot got to $46 in November of 2021, so it's down 70%. The one thing that's the gigantic outlier that's outperforming everything by a mile is CleanSpark. So if we take a look at what CleanSpark's doing, even after, if we zoom in, we can say, well, CleanSpark's down, almost 30% in the last week, but This green line right here, that was where CleanSpark was when Bitcoin hit its all-time high in November of 2021. So CleanSpark actually just bounced off of that line as resistance just last week. So whereas these other companies are drastically off of their previous all-time high, CleanSpark actually ran all the way back up to its I won't say all-time high. It's high from the peak of the last bull market. So, when we look at some of these charts, if you look at, this is year to date in 2024, switching gears just a little bit. This is how every Bitcoin miner is performing year to date as of Friday. So this does not include today. You're going to see most of the Bitcoin miners, as all of us are sensing and feeling, it has not been a great 2024 for the Bitcoin miners. All but 3 of these are in the red. You're going to see Bitfarms is up 1% on the year. So, basically break even. Marathon's up 15% in the same time that Bitcoin was up 50%. And that doesn't include the 7% run up today. So CleanSpark's up 62% in this same period of time. So just to put it in perspective, as you're investing and as you may be feeling bad, there was a massive amount of negative comments regarding CleanSpark, and it's a garbage stock and it's trash and it's going to zero. CleanSpark is drastically outperforming the entire competition over the course of the last couple of months. And really, even if you go all the way back, to July 14th of 2023, all the Bitcoin miners hit a high at that time, their high for the year in 2023. Even if we measure back from that point, which, is 7 or 8 months ago now, you'll see CleanSpark's up 159% from that point. It's outperforming even Bitcoin. Marathon and Bitfarms up just under 50% in that period of time. So I try to show all these every weekend. I update all these charts and show everybody because there's a million different ways to look at this. So I just encourage everybody to look at this in as many different ways as you possibly can and consider all the information that's available. Because while, in a vacuum, if you just look at CleanSpark and say, man, it's down, from its high of last week to now, it's down 30%. You might think, this is a disaster, but it's still, with that, outperforming everything by a mile. It's also the only Bitcoin miner that has surpassed its previous all-time high market cap, and it's I think over 4 times its previous all-time high market cap. So, CleanSpark's performing in a lot of different ways. And I do think, again, so for me, this is I think my largest, not only my largest investment in the Bitcoin miners, I think this is my largest investment overall. And I didn't sell any of this. Now, I'm not necessarily going to buy at $16, right? I dollar cost averaged in for years. So you can see this thing got all the way down to $1.74. So my low, we looked at this last week. My best purchase was at $2.05, but I was buying between $2 and $4 for, a year and a half. So I'm not likely to average in at $16 at this point. I already have more of this than I ever thought that I would, but there are other stocks that I didn't build out a position in. So, if the opportunities present themselves, I'm looking for price points. George, you mentioned some price points on a couple of stocks that you'd consider buying back into. You want to share?
Marathon 16, baby.
Marathon. So let's go to Marathon.
I can't even believe it when I say this one. I think there's a good likelihood that CleanSpark could go below 10. Don't hate me because of that. Don't hate me. But I think there's a very good likelihood that could happen.
That CleanSpark below 10. Well, let's go back to that chart for a second, and then we'll go back to Marathon.
But if somebody was asking if Riot's a good buy right now, I think what you do is you do all your research you can, and then do the exact opposite of what you come up with, and you should be right. That's how I used to trade in the beginning. Okay, I think this is a buy, so I shorted the stock.
I'm considering building to my position in Riot. I did not do so. I didn't last week. I didn't buy anything today. I just feel like there's a big part of me that feels like there's more downward pressure to come. And the other thing is, it depends where your situation is. I'm already overweight in Bitcoin miners. So for me, being overweight, I'm in no hurry to dollar cost average in. So I have a little more leniency. I really want to get a bargain if I'm going to add to these positions. But if you are still building out your position, I don't think you're too late. That's my opinion. I think that all of these companies are going to, no, I say all of these companies, all the companies that I have a high level of conviction in, 4 of which I've mentioned, I think those companies over the next year and a half are going to go to much higher places. So if you believe that, if you've done your due diligence, if you have your own conviction and you're going to hold the stocks, then, this could be a good time to dollar cost average in. I would just always caution people, don't ever, I think one of the biggest mistakes investors make is, and it's a FOMO move and it's a panic move, is I got to get everything in now or I'm going to miss the whole deal. And, maybe you're the person that gets lucky and you picked the top or you picked the bottom. But in reality, for most of us, that's just not how it works. So you buy some, and if a price and then you buy some more, and then you buy some more. So
Right, you just allocate, and I think that's the smart. DCA is definitely the way to go, because then it makes your break even so much better. And that's how you usually win. The guys at DCA are the guys that are winning in the game of trading stock.
historically, that has been an incredibly successful. Obviously, you need to be in the right investments. If you're dollar cost averaging into a company going out of business, right, you're not, it's not going to end well for you. But if you're,
Right.
if you've picked the right companies, if your investment thesis is sound, maybe you can't pick the exact right day. None of us can. The market is mostly irrational. That's one of the giant myths that they talk. Oh, the market's efficient. The market's rational. No, it's the exact opposite. The market is not efficient. Over time, it may be, but at any given moment, just like right now, when Bitcoin was through the roof today and the Bitcoin miners were all red, the market.
Ridiculous.
Right. If you try to find a rhyme or a reason on a short-term basis like that, you're just going to make yourself crazy, which is why we talk about dollar cost averaging, because that takes all that emotion and guesswork out of it. The true work is doing your due diligence and deciding this is a solid company with a good future. If you figured that much out, you're probably not going to figure out the moment in time that's the perfect moment to buy the stock.
Well, if you look at CleanSpark today, they got to 1585, I think was their low, something right around there.
Yeah, they got, I'll double check, but yes, they.
Yeah, but it's right there, and I mean,
1589.
Yeah, I mean, it's we're there. I mean, I didn't think that would happen.
I mean, for me, they had a little resistance here at just around $13.50. So I think that could be a line they retrace. There is a gap, as somebody pointed out. A lot of times these gaps can get filled
in later. They get filled in later.
Oops. All right, so I just did that wrong.
Did you see what I put my poll as?
Let's see. Uh-oh. Do I want to see? Does anyone think we could have a rug pull with the ETF, a big run, and then a dump, Bitcoin drop? So we're going to get a rug. So you're asking, is there a big move to the downside ahead for Bitcoin?
I think that what they could do, see, this is the thing that scares me with Bitcoin. I think it still might be too early for something like that. But just so you know, always put that in the back of your mind. If you build out your positions and you're where you want to be financially, make sure you have an exit strategy. That's for everything. Whether you're in crypto, whether you're in life, whatever it is, make sure you have an exit strategy.
That's right. No entrance, exit, and a plan along the way, and the flexibility to change that plan if circumstances change.
I mean,
to your point, George, could we have a pullback? What I would submit to you is, if you take a look at the one-day RSI, and I'm always, sometimes I show a few of these basic technical analysis, and I always say, listen, there's a million different versions of technical analysis, and no one thing is the be all end all. But I will tell you, we are now a long time into. You got to go back. Bitcoin went into overbought territory on February 9th, and it's now March 4th. So other than a few days where it popped a little bit under 70, we've been above 80 a lot of this time. So over a week above 80. So now that's a double-edged sword because, sometimes that means you're in the middle of a giant momentum push to the upside and you don't know when that's going to end. So could we break our all-time high? And oftentimes once you break out, right, what's our last big line of resistance? Our last line of resistance really in the Bitcoin universe is $69,000 because everything after that, it's all blue sky, uncharted territory. So there are no more lines.
I think what you're saying, Tom, where we're going, we don't need roads.
Exactly. So you could make a valid argument that number one, on one side, you could say, listen, we're already so overbought. This has been such a vicious run to the upside. We're overdue, long overdue for our normal 20% pullback. And by the way, once we're in the real bull run, if you look at the last cycle, the pullbacks were more typically 30%. A couple of them were 50%. I'm not saying that's going to happen this time. I'm just saying historically, a 15 or 20% pullback is nothing for Bitcoin. So, you could argue we're way overdue. You can see since the bottom, the few times, we had a nice run up, and then this was pretty much sideways consolidation. This was sideways consolidation, and this was sideways. So we really haven't had one of those pullbacks. So, by that argument, you could say, well, we're due, we're overdue. Or by the flip side, you could say, listen, we're just getting rolling here. There's some fundamentals. These ETFs are bringing untold amounts of money into this space, and that's only just beginning. So, this is why trying to pick a top, pick a bottom.
Tom, can you, when you got a second, pull up Cleanspark again?
You got it.
Because I'm talking out my butt a little bit. It's probably not gonna. It's gonna get right to 10. Right, it's gonna get someplace there. So what I have always find when we're trading these type of stocks is that they have a history here, and whenever you think that that's the low, they usually go lower because that's just how they know to play the game. And if you look, you start seeing crazy support right around $10.
I mean, you got this candle here that went down to 10 on February 8th. So, that was less than a month ago. We were at 10. A few weeks before that, we were, under 7. Right. So
let's put it this way. It spent more of its life under $10 than it has been over $10.
Oh, the vast majority.
Yeah. I mean, so it always finds a way to get back there. Do I think Cleanspark's bad? Nope. Do I own a lot of Cleanspark? Yep. Is it my number one position? Yep. I'm just letting you know that that's what these guys do.
That's what they do.
And it might, I mean, to me, anything under 15 looks really good.
I've got a line at $13.56 for whatever that's worth. There's a line somewhere around 14. And then you're right. I mean, if you look here, there's real support in this 16, just under $16 area. So, very similar to Marathon.
But I think right now until the halving, I don't think we're going much more than, unless we go parabolic. Again, remember, that's what I said about Marathon too. If we go parabolic, which we are, that's what's concerning, is that none of these things should hold true.
That what? Elaborate if you would.
What, meaning that none of the price predictions come true if we all of a sudden wake up next week and we're new all-time high.
Oh, everything out the window, in other words.
Everything's out the window. Everything. This is very fluid. Everything changes quickly. Tomorrow morning could be a totally different day, But I mean, end of the game is if you believe that these Bitcoin miners are a good play on Bitcoin or a leverage play on Bitcoin, and get in. If you don't get in. You know what I mean? Buy Bitcoin.
Right. You can
Just
always.
if you when they swear, just on your messages, it takes me a minute but I don't care what you say. You can swear all you want. Doesn't bother me any. I figure we're all mature adults here. Well, some of us are mature. Some of us are just adults.
I don't know if the chat lets you swear.
Yeah, it does. I have to just hit show.
Oh, it asks you, and then you can
Yeah,
approve
yeah,
it.
yeah.
I got you. I did not know that.
Oh yeah, and the God candle. I can't wait for the God candle or the Omega candle.
So, do you think we're going to have a candle bigger than the record candle that we just had?
What percentage was it?
Let's take a look.
Was it over? I mean,
Take a look.
probably, Tom. I mean, if the interest keeps going,
This was 44% in the month of February. So, and this was our $18,606, 44%. That's our biggest candle in any month in the history of Bitcoin.
you know what, Tom? Probably.
I think we're going to take that out as a
Yeah, I
dollar
too.
amount. It's easier for me to believe we'll
Yeah.
take that out as a dollar amount, right? Because the bigger Bitcoin gets, the smaller the percent move that would be. But a 44% move in 1 month, that's a strong move. That's going to be tough to beat. This was 40% back in 2021.
I think if you have
Excuse me.
some banks in the United States start to go on, you start to have some other civil unrest across the rest of the world. I think that you can see some crazy, crazy things still happen for Bitcoin. I personally think that people have decided that Bitcoin is the future. Forget the whole BRICS thing. Forget that. I think that they feel that the store of value right now is in Bitcoin. And if rich people all agree on that, then that is the case.
Yeah, to some extent, it is whatever they agree it is.
But I will tell you, to me, it's concerning to have a lot of big companies holding a lot of Bitcoin. That's concerning to me because that is not what Bitcoin was made for. So that's the reason why I think everybody's price predictions are crazy. But at any point in time, I think they could do a rug pull.
When you say the price predictions are crazy,
I don't think they're high enough.
oh, you think they're not high enough?
No, I don't think they're high enough at all because
So,
Bitcoin is such a scarcity, and it's gonna get to a point where there's gonna be no Bitcoin left to be on exchanges, and eventually they're gonna call somebody and say, "Hey, I need your 10,000 Bitcoin," and he's gonna say, "I don't want to give up that wallet," and then they're gonna start fighting, and then it's gonna take off.
so you want to do a poll? This
Yeah,
one's
let's.
very close. So, are we going to have a rug pull? This was very, very close. No is a winner, but it was almost, 54-46.
It's the
I'll let you pick
possibilities
the
out there.
numbers. Throw some numbers out there, George. Where's Bitcoin going to get at its peak in this cycle? And I'll let you pick the numbers.
When does this cycle end, do you think?
I mean, if it's an ordinary normal cycle, sometime by the end of 2025, we will have hit a new all-time high. We seem, in my opinion, to be ahead of schedule, but, who knows?
So mid 25?
Yeah, somewhere between the middle and end of 2025. It could, every cycle is not going to be identical. So in the meantime, while George is doing that, I've drawn. So this was the week. So I went to the 1 week here, and let me just go away for the moment. You can see this orange candle here is these 7 days from, the beginning of the week to the end of the week. So, and the end of that week was, Sunday. This candle, and let me delete that box because it's hard to see. So that was $11,444, a 22% move to the upside in the week that just ended yesterday. So that $11,444 is the largest 1 week candle we've ever had in the history of Bitcoin. So, we've been on a roll. We're hanging around at 67.7. So we did get as high as 68,000 today. Last stop, 69,000. So, right, we've been debating on this channel, are we going to get there before the halving? We've been asking that question for several months now. And, now the question is, are we going to get there today?
Right. Well, and I think that Hong Kong thing coming on is another big thing too, catalyst.
Right. There's just catalyst after catalyst to the upside. And, there's a few things that may push it downward from time to time. And there's just going to be the natural order of things. Trust me, as bullish as everybody is right now, they will find a way to have us all in a pure panic sometime sooner or later. And by that, I mean in the next 2-3 months. I don't know when that is. I don't know when the next dip is. But if you look at the history of Bitcoin, we really don't go, 6-month periods of time without some type of correction. And the more vicious the move up, the more potentially, vicious the pullback.
So, did you hear what the final rumor was about Coinbase and the whole reason they shut down?
No, let's hear it.
They have so many coins that they sell in their main account. And when that 16,000 coin order came in, they did not have enough coins to cover it in that account. So something to do with the way they account for their coins. So when that did it, it just broke the system. And then it just went parabolic. And they had to shut it down. That's the story behind it.
They ran out of liquidity.
They ran out of Bitcoin. So
Crypto fever.
So I think that we could go this month to over $100,000 this month. Not financial advice. Know what you hold.
You're not alone, George. The predictions that I've been hearing in the last week, it's the one thing that gives me pause is when everybody's on the same page. But I will tell you, everybody was on the same page. I've never seen such consensus in the weeks preceding the approval of the spot ETFs. Everybody I saw everywhere was highly confident that the ETFs were going to get approved on January 10th.
Yep.
It was the biggest reason I thought it gave me pause. When everybody agrees, that tends not to happen. Well, it did happen. And now I've seen people talking about numbers that, it's funny. Maybe 8 months ago, we did a poll. I don't know if it was a members only or everybody stream. There was a significant number of people that thought we were not going to get back to $50,000 in this bull market in its entirety at the peak of this bull market. So that's how much sentiment can change in just 6 or 8 months, right? We're now $17,000 over that already. So for as bullish as everybody is at the moment, they can change something. They will mess with our emotions on the way up. But for me, I will look at it as, until something shows me reason to believe otherwise, I expect a series of, 20 or 30% corrections inside of a bull market that's going to last for the next year to year and a half. That's, that's not financial advice. That's not only my opinion, but it's basically a reflection of what's happened in the previous cycles.
All I did was take February's number and multiply it. No one said anything to me. I didn't hear anybody saying that their Bitcoin could go to 100,000 this month. I didn't hear that. I just took and looked at what just happened in
All right.
February. Did simple mathematics. I took and I said, did I think in a percentage wise that it could beat it? And yes, just like time, TIME works in options, the exact same thing works on Bitcoin. The less Bitcoin you have, more scarcity is. The more scarcity it is, price goes way up. And that's the factor that people are not putting into Bitcoin. People are forgetting. So in options, when you trade options, as time gets closer to the due date, your time pressure comes down. Well, as we start to see more and more Bitcoin out in the marketplace and the less on these exchanges, then the exact opposite's happening. And then you're seeing the pressure get pushed up higher and higher.
You're saying as the supply
Yes.
gets taken out,
Off of the exchanges, yes.
there's the supply shock is what
Yep.
everybody is looking for.
Is that what they're calling it? Supply
Yes.
shock.
And, you know, there's several things that are leading us towards supply shock. And I think that's some of the price action we're getting as we speak. But you're right. I mean, is it hard to believe that Bitcoin's going to run to 100,000 sooner than later? You know, I've been saying I think Bitcoin's going to be somewhere, you know, 175,000, between 150 and 102,000 at the peak of this cycle. People thought I was nuts 5 months ago for saying that. Now I see most of the people I watch on YouTube have numbers way higher than that. So, you know, I don't know if people are getting too excited.
Well, listen to this, Tom. For 3 weeks, the ETFs were able to keep Bitcoin at $50,000, right?
Bitcoin,
And that last weekend, I was banging on the freaking monitor, and I was pissed off. And I said, Tom, it doesn't make sense. This does not make sense what's happening to the price of Bitcoin. It's manipulated. The price is being held down. It doesn't make any sense. That Monday is when all hell broke loose. So think about that. If you go back to that Monday, Tom, whatever day that was till today, that is the run.
and right, and in the middle, we did have an extremely brief 21% pullback. It was measured in days. So to that extent, we did get one pullback.
Right, and I remember what it was. And there's events around these things.
Well,
it's
yeah,
just crazy. And I just believe that we're just in such a parabolic cycle, because now Bitcoin is hot. Everybody is, look at the stream, look at the number of people watching, Tom. Everybody is focusing on Bitcoin and crypto right now, and I think that this is going to be that way for a next few months.
Yeah, and I think we're at the beginning of that, because we are knocking on the door of an all-time high, and this is just about when,
look at
you know,
that. Is that correct, Edmund? 68.9?
That's right. We're 67,950.
And by the way, this is again the 5 o'clock pump like we get, guys.
Yeah. I missed Kevin K. Thanks for the super chat. Kevin K.
Thanks,
has
Kevin.
a not necessarily serious question. Will Bitcoin CEO Satoshi raise the price of Bitcoin? We should do a poll.
Probably will. So look at the poll. What are people thinking?
Of course, that's not how it works, everybody. For those of you who are new here or new to Bitcoin and the Bitcoin universe, that was a joke. That's not how it works. I know that 99% of you know that.
That's interesting. So 64% believe Bitcoin will be over 150,000 by mid-2025.
So only 19% think it will be less than 150.
Fever, I know I said that. Crypto Fever has been screaming exactly what I just said for literally 6 months now. He took and had to convince me. But the problem is the scarcity now of Bitcoin. Remember, look at how many Bitcoin are being sold. Look at how many are being mined. Next, look at what happens after the halving. This thing's getting ready to be stupid.
And
now, it could dump again another 20%. I mean, a 20% dump wouldn't even concern me. The only thing that would concern me would be the Bitcoin miners.
what will happen to the Bitcoin miners in
Yeah.
that instance. Right. Because while we're getting downward pressure as Bitcoin goes up, you can bet if Bitcoin goes down, of course, we're going to get double the pressure. So
I just think this is interesting. And I think this to me is just, we've been screaming this for 2 years, right? I mean, I've felt like an idiot talking about crypto for the last 2 years. I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, oh, Bitcoin,
it,
I mean, because it was so beat up and so many people lost money. We're almost to the point where nobody has lost money buying Bitcoin.
it was a long, brutal crypto winter. And, there are some people, I will tell you, and you can tell in the comments section, there's some people that maybe just got in. And so they're down right now, especially if it was the Bitcoin miners, because we've had a little bit of a pullback. But, we waited years through the crypto winter. So if you just got in and you're down a little bit, if you want to get out, if you can't put your head on your pillow at night and go to sleep with your investments, then, that's probably the most surefire sign that you're in the wrong investments for you. But, if you think that we've had a few bad days and, and for that reason, you got burned and all these are garbage, I would just caution to zoom out, take a bigger picture look. We're in the middle of gigantic run-ups for these Bitcoin miners. I'm going to go to one chart and then I want to show you one more after that. I like to remind people,
besides my stock account, all my accounts are where I thought they would be at the end of this year. By the way,
they're already at where you thought they'd be at the end of this year.
Yes. Yep.
I like to show this chart from time to time. This is 2023. So this is what the Bitcoin miners did in 2023. In gold, you'll see Bitcoin up 154%. So by the way, 2023 was a fantastic year for Bitcoin. 2022 was a nightmare and a disaster. And if you think it was bad for Bitcoin, just look at the Bitcoin miners. They were all down between 91 and 99%. So it was a long, cold crypto winter. But on the flip side, if you dollar cost averaged in, this is what 2023 looked like. But this is not the total picture of what I want to show you because we're in the middle of, let me go here. We are I talked about these 9.5 weeks that we're in the middle of, and on Wednesday it'll be 10 weeks. Bitcoin's up 45%. Only CleanSpark's in the green. All these other Bitcoin miners are down dramatically. So you can see the Bitcoin miners are underperforming Bitcoin in a substantial way.
So that's how come I say, like, right there is why I say CleanSpark could go below $10. Thank you for that, Tom.
Let me show you this next chart. For those of you who are losing hope and you think, well, there's now a disconnect. The Bitcoin miners, are no longer a leverage and they no longer outperform Bitcoin. They're underperforming Bitcoin. I will show you this. This was October 20th, 2023. You'll see here it says 14 weeks. We counted these weeks out week by week. And this was in cryptocurrency, 14 weeks is like forever. I can't even tell you, years. This felt like an eternity. Bitcoin down 2%. The Bitcoin miners, look here in the middle. The average Bitcoin miner was down 55%. Some of these were down over 70%. And I'm not talking about just the nano caps. Right? If you take a look here, Marathon was down 57% in the same period of time, in a 14-week period of time, where Bitcoin was down 2%, Marathon was down 57%. Riot was down 54%. CleanSpark, that was one of the best performers, down 43%. Bitfarms, 48%. Find your Bitcoin miner. It's going to be red, and it's going to be ugly. So we had to endure 14 weeks of this, but with these 14 weeks of getting decimated, still just a month and a half later, when the year was over, this is what everything looked like. So can things turn around, right? Does this, so now we find ourselves once again just about 10 weeks into, an ugly, ugly picture for the Bitcoin miners. So is history repeating itself? There's no
I think so.
guarantee. Right. We can't say for certain, but what we can say, if you're sitting here thinking like, oh, you know what, after all these years, the correlation has finally broken, the Bitcoin miners are broken, it's over. Just understand the identical thing happened, just in the middle of last year. In fact, it was, I won't say it was worse than this. This is on the same scale and magnitude of what happened the last time around. But after that, we saw by December 27th, right? That was October 20th was the full 14 weeks. By December 27th, just 2 months later, almost every single Bitcoin miner was at a new high for the year in 2023. So these things move fast in both directions, I guess would be my point. And that's one of the biggest things I wanted to get on. And, we were a little bit into the stream by the time we got to that. But just so, that's not a guarantee and that's not a promise. And it's just a historical fact. That's what happened last year. It would appear we seem to be in the middle of a similar situation. And to George's earlier point, right? I mean, these move up and down. And George was day trading these for a few weeks very successfully. I think you took a time out and life got in the way. But
yeah, it's so hard. It's just, you got to be on it. You got to be Johnny on the spot, and you can't do anything else except stay there. And then if you timed it wrong and you miss it, woo-wee. Cleanspark's a great example of that. I went on a fishing trip on that Friday, and that was the most expensive fishing trip I've ever been on. It had nothing to do with the cost of the fishing trip. But my thing is this: if Bitcoin moves that fast, I don't know how people can keep the coins. Because it could be that one of those things that it just never comes back down.
There's an awful lot of remaining buying pressure. There is no doubt about that. We did see, let me see if I have this thing open. I don't think I have it open, but, this might be it. So we did see a little bit of, on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday of last week, which were big green candles. The entire move last week for Bitcoin, which was the biggest 1 week move in Bitcoin's history, it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're pretty much sideways the rest of the week. You can see this is the activity for the spot ETFs last week. I kind of cut this down so you didn't have to look at every single day since the inception. This was just last week. So on Thursday and Friday, if you look at Grayscale, these numbers ballooned. $598 million of outflow on Thursday for Grayscale, $492 million of outflow on Friday. I believe this is most likely Genesis, right? Genesis got court approval on February 14th. They owned approximately $1.6 billion of interest in the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, which is now the Grayscale Bitcoin ETF. So they got approval to sell. Immediately, there was pressure for the next few days. It seemed to subside, but for whatever reason, this massive spike, to me, seems highly likely that a big chunk of this was Genesis. So that means they could be a significant portion of the way through selling out of their Grayscale position. So, these big inflows, as these continue, and they don't have to be, these are $500 million a day. So not every day is necessarily going to be a $500 million, but even $100 or $200 or $300 million a day of additional pressure, buying pressure. And it's a double whammy because remember, these are just going to continue to grow. So every single time they buy Bitcoin, those Bitcoin essentially are off the market. I won't use the word forever, but for all intents and purposes, for the rest of this bull run, those Bitcoin are off the market, not available for sale. And there's plenty more leaving. So as the demand grows and grows, the supply shrinks and shrinks, all as a part of the same transactions.
Uh-oh.
What's the matter, George? Random uh-oh.
No, you okay? No, I lost you. You
Oh.
came back. Do they show the holders of Grayscale Trust anywhere?
Well, now it's the Grayscale ETF, so
So that's a no.
Right, that would be a no.
Oof.
I don't know if Genesis is reporting this. I think it's highly likely, or at least reasonable, to assume that a lot of this was, and if I scroll down, we can look at the whole thing. You'll see in the week or two before that, right, there was, right out of the box, there was, except for the first day, this popped up to about $500 million a day. So a lot of people had their money tied up in the Grayscale Trust for years and years. There was a massive discount. At one point, it approached a 50% discount. So this was like the floodgates opening. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The first 7 days here averaged over $500 million of outflow from Grayscale. This got way under control. This was down, between $50 and $100 million for several weeks. Then we got a little bit of extra pressure when Genesis got permission to start selling. It even subsided again after that. So I don't think you're going to see this sustained amount of pressure. But even with all of this outflow, which is almost $9 billion, we still have $7 billion net. So that's $15 billion of inflow into these trusts. And you can see BlackRock alone as of Friday was over $10 billion. Fidelity was over $6 billion. ARK Invest was over $2 billion. Bitwise $1.5 billion. And really those four, I think, are going to dominate. And you have to include Grayscale, which still has by far the most. But these other companies are catching up.
Take a look at, I know it's not, do you want to see a company that went up 75% today?
Yes. Oh, by the way, can I interject 1 second? We just crossed $68,000.
Oh my goodness gracious.
$68,067.
So the 5 o'clock buy is real.
It's the 5 o'clock pump is on.
Dude, that's insane.
You were going to say, I was going to take,
I guess it's Funware, and it's PHUN.
I know why this pumped.
Oh, were you in it?
No, I'm not in it. And in addition to whatever else happened, for those of you who know Charlie at Zip Trader, he has a very big YouTube channel. He did a video on this last night, and today it's up 75%. And you can see, even with this 75%, it's still only a $97 million market cap company. So, a lot of people talk about, oh, you pump stocks. Well, we are a tiny channel.
So he pumped this stock?
I'm not accusing him of pumping this stock. I like his channel, and there's only a few people that I think are really good at this stuff that have YouTube channels. Charlie, I don't know if it's him or if he has a team behind him. He's very knowledgeable, including, Marathon's one of his personal favorites, which is how I found him. But he's pretty knowledgeable about the Bitcoin miners. Most of the people that I see talk about Bitcoin miners on YouTube, because they talk about so many things, the broad spectrum of all investing, when they get to talking about Bitcoin miners, for those of us here that know a lot about this stuff, their information is it's not very deep dive, let's just say. Charlie does seem to have a very good grasp on the Bitcoin miners. And I know he's been following Marathon for almost as long as I have. So, but anyway, apparently this was a big win. I looked at this last night. He mentioned 4 stocks. I looked into this one, and to me, it just seemed like a highly speculative play. it does have big runs up and down, and so congratulations if you were in on this. Anybody who watches Zip Trader, I guess, made some money today on this one. That's a monster move.
Look at after hours even.
Yeah, it's killing it after hours. So this is, well, guess we missed this one.
Yeah.
What we did not miss is this, $68,243. We could run to 69,000 right now, $68,300.
What was the all-time high before?
$69,000 even. On this chart, on the Coinbase chart, it was exactly to the penny. Although for whatever reason, I have 49 cents on the end of this. It was to the penny. I'll change that right now. $69,000 on this particular chart. Obviously, on each exchange, it is slightly a different number. So depending on which exchange you're looking at. So I call the official high $69,000.00. And if let me go to the 1 day. I'll zoom out and we'll go to that day. Oh, not that way. Let's just take a second. Let's go back in time very quickly. And so here on November 10th, if you guys can see this red up here, this, according to this, on November 10th, 2021, Bitcoin got to $69,000.00. November 10th, 2021. Barry, Barry's saying I'm saying he's a pump and dumper. I'm not saying that at all. I just got through saying I think he's one of the guys who knows what he's talking about. Now, sometimes just, he can't help it if everybody jumps in
and pumps and dumps it.
That was not the point of my story, just to be perfectly clear. That could be a great company for all I know, right? I did not do a full deep dive. I took a quick look when he mentioned it last night. I was busy making my own video last night, but I do try to look around. You guys can see, I do try to at least see what other people are saying out there. I try to stay in the loop to whatever extent I can. I mean, I almost feel like hanging around to see if we get to $69,000, but that was pretty much everything that I had to go through. George, do you have anything else?
No. I'm making my dinner as you do that.
Nice.
I'm starved.
So we're going to get the rest of the Bitcoin miners will be putting out their monthly operational reports, and then I will do a monthly update for all the Bitcoin miners. In addition to that, Bitfarms reports, I think, this Thursday.
Yeah.
So that's coming. I'm not expecting any shocking news out of that, but of course, it's always nice to get a 10K. They will do a conference call. So probably Ben is usually on those as well.
And maybe we want to let everybody know if they're a member. What do they get, Tom?
What do they get for being a member? Tomorrow we have our members only live stream. So once a week, we do a live stream for members only, where we can talk about a little bit more in depth and some things that maybe YouTube doesn't like us talking about in their algorithm on these public streams. Also, it does help support the channel. We're a small channel. I want to thank everybody. We did just cross 20,000 subscribers. So that has been a long-term goal. I know that's still a very small channel, but we are glad to be at 20,000. I think we have the best subscribers. I know we have the best members. So thank you. Special thanks to all of our existing members. It is only $5 a month to be a member of our group. We have a lot of very experienced investors that come at this from a lot of different angles. So we have a great discussion going in our members only Discord, as well as our once a week members only live stream. So if you're interested, you can hit the join button, and it's right on YouTube. Otherwise, if you have not subscribed, you can join the 20,000 members that we just got to. We would love to have you with us. If you're interested in Bitcoin, if you're interested in the Bitcoin miners, that's really all we talk about on this channel. 90 something plus % of what we talk about.
We're not going to talk about your dating life?
There, we just did. What's next?
That's funny. All right, well, I guess that's it for me. Anything else?
68,400. That's it. We'll end on that
my
note.
Goodness. Wow.
Everybody, I know today was a rough day as far as the Bitcoin miners went, but as long as Bitcoin keeps moving in the right direction, in my opinion, what's good for Bitcoin is good for the Bitcoin miners. Even if it's not lining up on a day-to-day basis, I still remain optimistic. Obviously, not financial advice. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us on this impromptu live stream. Have a great night. Have a great week. Members, we will see you guys tomorrow. And for everybody else, we do a live stream every Friday after the market closes. We also do special live streams if anything special is happening with Bitcoin. So thanks again. Have a fantastic night. George, have a great night.
See you guys.
Good night.